Hello everyone, welcome back to the Virtual Ninja Show. My name is Heike and I will be your host. And today it's all about Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management. And before we get there, you know these little guys. And if you would like to get the chance to get one of those, please check out the link, aka.ms/plushcat. And then you will see questions that you need to answer. And then good luck with that. So today I have Brandon with me. He's also part of our CXE team, but I will let him introduce himself. Brandon, please.
Yeah, hi. My name is Brandon Lawson. I'm a customer experience product manager on the Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management team. And today we're going to talk about the premium capabilities with vulnerability management.
Wonderful. This is actually a good start and good point. We already did an episode in season number 1 where we talked about Defender Vulnerability Management, what you call the core capabilities. And the core capabilities have been covered in that other episode. We put a link here. And then now we talk about the premium capabilities that were just briefly mentioned. Maybe we can have a look at that slide.
Yeah, so previously, right, we talked about the core capabilities with MDVM. Today, we're really going to focus on the premium or the add-on capabilities that just were released. Some of those include security baseline assessments. These are really good for finding if your computers are STIG compliant or CIS compliant. We have a really cool feature called authenticated scans, where you're able to scan and collect the vulnerability management capabilities for devices that aren't actually onboarded to MDE, which is really cool. And then we also have a lot of assessments now and related to your browsers, your certificates, in addition to your hardware as well. And then one other really cool thing is the network share analysis, where we can actually go out and scan all your network shares and figure out if you have the correct permissions for them or any other security vulnerabilities related to your shares.
Wow. So just to quickly summarize the core capabilities, which are needed as well, of course, for the premium capabilities, which is basically in general, the vulnerability assessment, the configuration or misconfiguration assessment, of course, continuous monitoring, that you always have the up-to-date data about your applications, and then all the visuals in the portal on what is your secure score, what is your exposure score, as well as the little icons that are there if you are exposed to one of those vulnerabilities and so on. And then, of course, risk-based prioritization based on your environment. So is a CVE out there, but are you vulnerable to it or not? So you don't have to fix it if not. And then, of course, all the remediation tracking, so you can see the progress of your ticket that you ask your IT to remediate the vulnerability.
Remediation. Yep, that's correct.
Yes, thank you. Wow, that's a lot. And now a lot more is coming. So I think, Brandon, so what is this like based on feedback that we receive? Is this all the new inventions and the new capabilities, or is this something because we see it targeting customers more and more? So how did we come up with those new capabilities, if you know?
Yeah, so these are, features that our customers have asked for in the past. Especially around security baselines. A lot of customers do use security baselines in their environment. To be able to collect that information continuously, right? Not just scan after scan after scan, but to do it on demand all the time is, what our customers were asking for. In addition to the assessments, right? We're one of the few products that can assess your browser plugins, your certificates, and collect all that data continuously and not have to kind of push that button to scan the environment.
Yeah, I read something about it that you basically configure for your organization the baseline, but we will get there. I'm super curious to see all of these things in action. Yep. So quickly summarize the slides. General available, of course, the core capabilities, what we call core. General available as well is the add-on And then in public preview right now is basically a standalone SKU. If someone doesn't own Defender for Endpoint Plan 2 and they would like to get a vulnerability management for their organization. Yeah.
Yep, that's correct, right? The blue column is the core capabilities. The purple is the general available for the premium capabilities. And then the last column there, the standalone is public preview, which you get the core and the premium capabilities all in one for those customers that don't currently have MDE.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, do we want to jump into all the
Yes.
different new premium capabilities?
The first thing I wanted to talk about today is the security baseline assessments. So let me go into here. It's really cool. So the very first screen you look at is kind of an overview of it. You can see how many of your devices are currently compliant. You can see the top failing devices, and then you can also see any misconfigured settings and the number of profiles. So these profiles here are all the different profiles, baselines that I set up in my environment. You could tell my lab environment here is not doing too well with 0% of my compliant devices, but it's a quick kind of snapshot to see how you're doing in your environment. The really cool thing here is if you click on profiles, every one of these are a different profile or baseline that I configured. You can see the benchmarks are CIS. We have a Microsoft benchmark as well. So these are the best practices when it comes to securing your Microsoft operating systems. And we also have STIG as well, right? It's really simple to create these baselines. You pretty much hit create, you type in a name, you hit next. You choose what software you want to create your baseline for, let's say Windows 10. And then you could select your different baselines, CIS, STIG, whatever you want to select. And then you can also select your compliance level, right? I'm going to go Cat 3.
Okay, and then the next step is we can basically change what is in the default template and customize. Okay, wow.
Yeah,
awesome.
So that's a really cool thing I wanted to show here is you can actually select all of these different compliances, or you can individually select them. In addition to that, we have some customization as well that, let's say this equals 1. If you did want to change the setting, you could change it to have it equal whatever value you'd want to make it. So you can really customize these baselines.
So benchmark configuration details further below there. Is this helping me to understand what that is? What do the values mean? Oh, there we go. Okay, got it. Awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. We give you kind of a general title of it, a description of everything that configuration is doing. And we also put in there our recommended value as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
One other customization you can do besides just the baselines is you can assign it to every device in your environment, or you can assign it to certain device groups as well. So you can really filter down. Let's say you have your IT department or you have your finance department that has different baselines that you might want to apply. You can actually select those individual device groups, or you can apply it to your whole organization.
So previously, when you created when you started create the baseline profile, you picked a certain OS type. Mm-hmm. So let's say, I don't know, Windows 10, whatever version. So now if you say to all devices, will it still only apply to those Windows 10, whatever version, or will it apply to all of them? Like, how is that? Or do I need to create a group that all contains all my specific Windows 10 version numbers?
So we'll go out there and apply, let's say if you select all device groups and you also selected Windows 10, we'll apply that baseline to all those Windows 10 devices in your organization.
Oh, and you can filter by device tags. Yep. Lovely.
Okay. Really cool stuff. So I'm going to cancel out of that and show you after you create one of these baselines, you can actually click on one of them and it'll come up here. And every one of those settings that you set, you can tell if you're compliant or not with it, which is really cool, right? You can scroll down here and see, yep, this first one, 0 out of 3 of my devices are compliant. The next one, 3 out of 3 of the devices are compliant. So you can really dive deep into these different settings that you have on your baselines.
Wow. Okay. So, Brandon, I saw in your policy earlier, it said active. Is that something that you need to set the policy to active and deactivate it if you don't need it, or where do you do that?
On the very first screen, when you type the name of your policy, there's a little button there that says activate this profile. And then as soon as that is set, then this policy will be active in your environment. And then you could go later on, let's say you no longer want to have one of these policies. You can go ahead and go in there and deactivate it as well.
Okay, so how is that now compared to the security assessment that is part of core, where you see all the recommendations? Is that just a different snapshot and you still have that other piece, or is that somehow merged?
Yeah, no. So we still have our weaknesses, and recommendations that we have built into MDVM core. However, these security baselines are based on industry standards like CIS and STIG. That is the main difference, that we're bringing in those recommendations from these kind of industry leading security best practices. And now you can compare your environment to those as well. That is it for security baselines. Let's move on to authenticated scans. This is a really cool feature where we can collect data from devices that currently don't have MDE installed on them. All you have to do is download the scanner and install it on your environment. And then you create a new scan and you'll select Windows Authenticated Scan. And the really cool thing about this is it actually uses a group managed service account. So it's a lot more secure. It uses the complex password to go out there and collect the information from the devices that you list here, the different targets. You can list it by host name or IP address. And then you can also set how often you want to scan that device, hourly, daily, do not repeat for a one-time scan. And you can also select every 4 hours, 1 hour, 8 hours, 12 hours, whatever you'd like to set it at. And then you can set Kerberos for your authentication method. You can also use the Key Vault within Azure as well to save those credentials. And then after you set this up, what's really cool is you can see here that I set one up previously. I called it MDVM scan. It's using my scanner agent on this server, and I'm targeting these servers here every hour. And if I go to my device inventory, you can see these two devices that I'm currently scanning with that mechanism, client 6 and my ADFS server, because they say, we get a little note here says they can be onboarded to MDE, but this kind of shows you that these aren't currently onboarded to MDE at all. However, if I click on them, you can see that I'm starting to collect different security recommendations for them. See, this one needs 111 updates that's currently missing on that server. And then software inventory, you can see every piece of software that's installed on that device, and then the vulnerabilities, those weaknesses that software might have as well.
Okay, just to complete that picture, we also have that, it was also in the settings for IoT devices that also can't get an agent installed. How is that connected with each other?
Yeah, so under device discovery, authenticated scans, so you have two options now, right? You have a scan for your network devices on your environment that uses SNMP, and then you also have your window authenticated scans. This is that new capability that we released with MDVM. So you can scan not only your network devices now, but also your Windows devices that don't have MD installed on them.
I love that they also show up and give you all the details and the options to basically tell your IT what needs to be fixed, yes, changed, and so on.
Exactly.
Good. So that was now the authenticated scan. We have a lot more. I think we have hardware and firmware assessment and extensions and all these kind of things. Tell me, where do we go next?
Inventory is what we're going to look at next. So this is a really cool feature that we introduced. So with Core, right, capabilities, we are able to inventory all the software that's currently installed in your environment. In addition to that, now we're actually able to collect your browser extensions, your certificates, and your hardware and firmware as well. The first one I want to look at here is browser extensions. So this is really cool, right? We're able to gather information from Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Firefox as well. Here is the list of every extension I have currently installed in my lab. We list out the permission risk as well, critical, high, mediums. I thought it was kind of funny that my fidget spinner extension is the safe one out there. It has no permissions it asks for, versus every other one is asking for critical or high permissions. You can see this one right here. This is asking for over 398 permissions in my environment.
Wow.
And if you click on one of these, let's say super dark mode, everyone loves the dark mode now in your environment when you're looking at web pages. And if you click on it, it'll give you a quick detail of what that description does. It switches all websites to dark mode. It shows you how many installed devices it's on, the permission risk. And then I can actually click on permissions, and you can see here every permission that that browser extension is asking for. So for example, the most critical one is website access permission to every URL that you visit, right? So it's having access to every single URL that you visit. You can show you what device it's installed on, what version it is, extension versions, right? It shows you every single version. And then also what user actually installed this browser extension as well, right? In this case, it was admin, which is also a very bad thing.
So this is not something that someone can fix. This is just something someone can uninstall.
Yep. This is something that you would want to uninstall.
Thank you. Quick reminder for everyone. You know, these Plüschcats are still looking for a beloved new home. So please go to aka.ms/Plüschcat and check out how you can get a chance to get one of those. Okay, that was browser extensions, certificates, and hardware all together covered? Or
Yep. So certificates, this is really cool. What MDVM is doing now is going out and scanning and finding every single certificate that you have in your environment. And what's really cool about it is we are able to tell anything that has a weak algorithm, anything that's self-signed, any certificates that are expired, and more importantly, certificates that are expiring soon. A lot of organizations run into this where a certificate is about to expire. They don't know about it, and then it brings down the system, it brings down the website. And the cool thing is I can filter on this. I can say expiring soon. Let's just look at the 30 and 60 days. I'm not too concerned. I wanted immediate certificates that I need to fix right now. I hit apply, and it shows you all the certificates that are expiring soon or certificates that have expired.
That's awesome. So then I'm thinking further, you could probably create an advanced hunting query and get an alert for when a certificate expires.
Yes. Yep. If a certificate is expired, yeah, there's a KQL query that you can pull. So we have KQL queries for all the new premium capabilities that we have.
That's awesome because, you know, it means people need to go there and proactively look. If something comes proactively to me, that's even better. Awesome. Okay, and then hardware and firmware, how does that look like?
Hardware and firmware. So this is really cool. So I can now determine if my BIOS, even my processor, has any vulnerabilities related to it in my environment. So that same great threats icons that you get for a public exploits available, or if this breach insight, if this is currently in your environment today, we bring those capabilities over to the BIOS. You can see the processors. We also call it the weaknesses and the threats as well. So you're able to tell if you have some firmware or processors that might have vulnerabilities in your environment. In addition to that, we have our laptop, desktop, and server models. This is kind of an inventory of all your devices, the hardware. You know, if it's a Microsoft, a HP, a Dell, whatever model of hardware it might be, you now have an inventory and any weaknesses that might be related to that hardware.
Awesome. So I think the last one that I remember from your list, but maybe I'm wrong, but it's about network shares.
Yeah. This is really cool. So if I go to recommendations and I go to filters, OS, and I select shares, this is all the kind of bad security practices that I currently have across my shares, across my environment. Disallow offline access to shares, right? That device goes offline. We no longer want that access to that share. Big one here, write permissions set to everyone. So let's look at this one real quick. So if I click on it, it gives you a brief description of why this is bad and the potential risk, remediation options, right? So remove the everyone permissions. It also shows you the exposed devices. So I now know on this server right here, I have a share that is set to everyone. And then also the exposed share. I can tell that I have 3 shares on this server here. If I click on it, 3 shares that have set to everyone. So for example, on this server, there's a share called IT department that has everyone set to it. And think how valuable that would be to an adversary if they have an open share that they can write to. And what's usually in the IT department's share, right? They usually keep their scripts in there that an adversary could rewrite to do malicious stuff. Sometimes maybe they'll put backups in there that adversaries would love to have access to. They could use it for lateral movement purposes. So this is a really great call out. I've showed this to a couple customers and they love this. The first thing they do is it's very surprising to the number of open shares they have in their environment. After that, they quickly do a request for remediation and start remediating, especially shares that have that everyone set to them.
Honestly, I can't think about any good case or example of where everyone should have write access to a specific folder. It's either per department. If you look at your profile folders, it's just the individual user. Like, why should someone like have everyone write to something that's just wrong?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, this is awesome. And this is under recommendations and you filtered OS and shares.
Yep, that's correct.
That's a lot of things, Brandon. How would you, if you need to take care of an environment when it comes to all those vulnerabilities and misconfigurations and such, approach your daily work? Like, do you go to the dashboard? You go to the baseline assessment? Like, what are the things that you would recommend someone to look on a regular basis, or maybe even set custom detections via KQL queries to get alerted on something? Do you have any recommendations maybe?
Yeah, we always recommend knock out the critical issues first, right? Those high value exposed devices, try to remediate those first. The really great thing about these capabilities is not only you can view these in the portal, but as I mentioned earlier, you can run KQL queries on it. We also have APIs related to this as well. I've had a lot of customers already looking to create Power BIs and custom dashboards related to some of these new findings and capabilities. So that'd be another great way to track this stuff.
So, and then of course, daily work is continuously looking into the dashboards and see if there's new critical things that were coming up overnight or something. And then of course, tracking within the core capabilities, if your organization is exposed to a certain risk and these kind of things. Is there anything people need to configure besides the baseline policies and the authenticated scans? Those were the two things that I think you showed us. There is something before it starts doing something.
Yep, that's correct.
But for the rest, it's just there.
Yeah, so for all the inventories that I showed you, the certificates, software, browser, hardware, firmware, that's all collected automatically for you. There's nothing you need to configure. Baseline assessments, like you said, you do need to configure. In addition to that, authenticated scans is something you could configure. Everything else is just automatically populated as soon as you enable the premium capabilities.
So, Brandon, there's one last thing we want to talk about, and that is what?
Blocking vulnerable applications. So if you go to security recommendations, and let's say I search for, Chrome, what I can do is, you see I have a recommendation to update Chrome to the latest version of 1.1.1. I can click on this. I can go to request remediation, and I'll select, let's say, all devices, and I'll set the remediation task, let's say, to the end of the week, and hit next. I can now select to either warn my user, which a message will pop up to say, hey, just be aware, you're going to allow your application this time, but please update your version of Chrome. Or I could say, let's block this altogether, and you'll get a little message. You can actually update this link as well if you have an internal website you'd rather point it to. And this will actually block access to those outdated versions of Chrome within your environment. So it'll give your system administrators time to go out there, patch every version of Chrome that you have, and also block any of the older versions until that happens.
First of all, I remember when I still did Defender for Endpoint presentations, and I presented threat and vulnerability management. There was always a question like, I want to block it. So awesome. But it means it will be blocked now and not until the deadline of the IT to fix it, right? So it will basically block until the IT fixed it and the new version is on the devices.
Yep. So as soon as that new version gets on that device, that user will be able to use Chrome again. And you can see what happens here in the background is it creates an activity. It says update Microsoft Firefox. And then also if I click on block applications, it'll show you here block applications. We're blocking every version. I only have 2 versions in my environment. So I'm blocking version 110 because 111 is the latest one. And actually what will happen on the back end is we actually create IOC indicator. And you can see here's the indicators now to block Firefox in your environment.
This is awesome. Wow. I think that is a really, really great addition. I mean, the others are awesome too, but I think this is so valuable because then you don't know when IT, they often have to do other things, and then this just pops in and they need to, I don't know, verify or prioritize, and at least you can now block it until it's done. Hopefully you don't block the IT usage of that Chrome and they can't fix
exactly.
it.
No, it's a really quick way to stop that vulnerability in your environment until your system administrators have time to come out and update that software.
Wow, Brendan, that was a lot. Thank you. And I'm super excited about those new capabilities. And if you are, or if you want to check them out, you can go and get a trial. The link we will put in here. And again, first, thanks, Brendan. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Quick reminder, if you want one of those, aka.ms/plushcat. And yes, I think that was it. Thanks, everyone. And hope to see you soon in the next episode. Bye.